Let us step into the summer of 1480. The southern coast of Italy trembles beneath. Dark sails rising from the horizon. The air is thick with fear, and the bells of Otranto ring in desperation. Across the Adriatic, the Ottoman fleet, one of the greatest in the world, has arrived. Within days, this quiet coastal town will become a graveyard of faith and empire. This is not merely a story of conquest, but of courage, faith, and blood. The story of Otranto, the shadow of an empire. After the fall of Constantinople in 1453, Sultan Mehmed II, known in the West as Mehmed the Conqueror, stood at the height of his power. He had broken the walls of Byzantium, crossed into Europe, and now turned his gaze toward Italy, the very heart of Christendom. To Mehmed, the conquest of Rome would complete what Alexander and Caesar had begun. He called himself Caesarum Caesar of Rome, and his empire stretched from the Danube to the Euphrates. Italy, divided and weakened by rival kingdoms and the Pope's political intrigues, seemed ripe for the taking. The kingdom of Naples under Ferrante I was vulnerable, and at its southern tip lay a small port city, Otranto, the gateway between East and West. The invasion of Italy. In July 1480, an Ottoman armada of over 150 ships set sail from the Albanian coast under the command of Gedik Ahmed Pasha. On board were some 18,000 soldiers, janissaries, artillerymen and sailors hardened by decades of war. They landed near Otranto on July 28th. The defenders were few, a garrison of about 400 soldiers and townspeople led by Count Francesco Largo. The Ottomans brought cannons, siege towers, and determination. The bombardment began day after day. The city walls shook under the roar of gunpowder and iron. The defenders held on bravely, sending desperate pleas for help to Naples, to the Pope, to anyone who would listen. But help never came. The garrison in Italy was left stranded, alone in a hostile land, cut off from supplies and reinforcements. The reconquest of Otranto, King Ferrante's son, Alfonso II of Naples, seized the moment with precision and determination. The death of Sultan Mehmed II had left the Ottoman Empire distracted and divided, and Alfonso knew this was the time to strike. Gathering his forces, seasoned Neapolitan knights, papal troops, and Spanish infantry sent by Ferdinand of Aragon, he marched south toward Otranto. The army carried not only swords and banners, but the weight of vengeance and redemption. As they advanced through the scorched villages of Apulia, stories of the massacre in Otranto fueled their resolve. The people along the way welcomed them with tears and prayers, blessing their march toward the city that had become a symbol of suffering. By early September 1481, Alfonso's army reached the outskirts of Otranto. The once vibrant port was now a ghostly ruin. The fortress stood blackened by fire, its walls marked by cannon scars. The Ottoman banners fluttered weakly in the late summer wind. The siege began swiftly. Neapolitan artillery bombarded the outer walls while archers and crossbowmen tightened the circle. Inside, the Ottoman garrison, leaderless and demoralized, and endured hunger, disease, and the crushing realization that no reinforcements would ever come. For weeks they resisted, hoping for a miracle from across the Adriatic. But the empire that had once seemed unstoppable was now paralyzed by succession disputes. Finally, facing starvation and hopelessness, the Ottoman commander offered surrender. Alfonso accepted, but his mercy was limited. The surviving Ottoman soldiers were executed, their heads displayed on the battlements, as a warning to any future invaders. When Alfonso entered the city, he found desolation. Streets once filled with merchants, and families were now lined with rubble and silence. The cathedral, the heart of Otranto, was a ruin, its altars shattered, its walls stained with the memory of blood. And yet amid the devastation, survivors began to rebuild. Stones were lifted, crosses were raised again, and prayers filled the air where screams had once echoed. The story of Otranto did not fade with time. It grew, transforming from a local tragedy into a legend whispered across the Mediterranean. For the Christian world, Otranto became a symbol of faith unbroken, a story of ordinary people who faced the sword with prayers on their lips. Their courage was seen as proof that belief could triumph over terror. For the Ottomans, however, It was a testament to the far reach of an empire that had carried its banners beyond the Adriatic, a reminder that even the heart of Europe was not beyond their grasp. In the centuries that followed, the martyrs of Otranto became the spiritual guardians of southern Italy. Pilgrims came from distant lands to kneel before the relics of the slain, men who had refused to abandon their faith even in the face of death. Inside the Cathedral of Otranto, the Chapel of the Martyrs was built, a haunting sanctuary of white marble and silence. Behind its glass altars rest the skulls and bones of the 800 men who perished on the Hill of Minerva. Their hollow eyes seem to watch every visitor, silent witnesses to a faith tested in blood. Generations passed, kingdoms fell, and empires vanished, yet the memory endured. Poets and chroniclers retold the story, and the name of Otranto became woven into Italy's collective soul, a reminder of both tragedy and transcendence. In 1731, Pope Clement XIV recognized the holiness of their sacrifice and declared them blessed. Centuries later, in 2013, Pope Francis canonized them as saints, declaring them a sign of reconciliation between peoples and faiths. Their canonization was not only an act of remembrance, but of healing, transforming the wounds of the past into a call for unity and peace. Today, the bones of the martyrs still rest in their glass reliquary, pale and still beneath the dim cathedral light. Pilgrims and tourists stand before them in silence, some in prayer, others in awe. Each skull tells the same story, of fear, courage, and an unbroken will. Otranto stands once more as a peaceful town overlooking the Adriatic Sea. Yet beneath its calm surface lies a memory carved in stone and spirit, the memory of the summer of 1480, when faith met fire and an entire city chose eternity over surrender. The siege of Otranto was more than a battle. It was a clash of worlds. East and west, crescent and cross, empire and faith. In that small Italian port, destiny paused for a moment, suspended between conquest and resistance. The walls of Otranto have been rebuilt. The bells once silenced now ring in peace, but beneath their echo lies the memory of 1480, the year when an empire crossed the sea and faith met fire. If you found this story powerful, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more untold stories from the tides of history.